technical challenges. We are now here to call to order the Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District Board meeting. It is Thursday, April 22nd, and we are scattered over the traditional territory of the Shuswap and Squamish Nation, and perhaps others because we have others from other areas of BC. So I have an agenda in front of us here. I'd look for a motion. First of all, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? I'd like for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And first up are the minutes of the Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District inaugural board meeting of March 25th. I'd look for a motion to receive and adopt. Moved. Seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And then we have a delegation here with us today. This is Paul Fripp and Andrew Davies from BDO Canada, and they're going to be talking to us about auditing.
Thank you very much, Director Seegers.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here this morning with everyone on the board, as well as other participants and viewers at home. We are here to present the results of our audit of the Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District for the year ended December 31st, 2020. At this time, I will share my screen if that's appropriate, so that I can run through the materials that we'll be presenting. Is that?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Could I just ask that Director Seegers, can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay,
Starts
wonderful.
with executive summary.
Okay, perfect. That's where we are. So the status of our audit is that we are substantially completed our audit pending approval of the financial statements by the board, as well as some finalization steps that are routine in any audit, which include the receipt of the signed letter of representation from management, as well as consideration of events all the way up until the audit approval date, which we anticipate will be today's date. Materiality, which was previously communicated to the board in our planning letter, was set at 53,000. On review of the final figures, there were small adjustments which resulted in a slight decrease in materiality down to 52,000. It did not have an impact on any of the work that we conducted. As with any audit, we're required to consider the possibility of error, whether resulting just possibility of misstatement, I should say, whether resulting from error or from fraud. We considered this in our planning and the conduct of our audit, and throughout that process, we didn't identify anything that we would raise to the board's attention. However, if any of the directors are aware of any circumstances which we should be made aware of, we would ask that you communicate those circumstances with us so that we can identify any potential impact on our audit opinion. Throughout the course of our audit, we are always assessing the potential risk of material misstatement. And in doing so, we identify areas of focus where we place a greater emphasis on our audit procedures. In the current year, under audit, so that's the fiscal year ending December 31, 2020, the areas of focus are as follows. So we considered the impact of COVID-19 on the hospital district. And you know, while a small entity, there could still be potential impacts arising from COVID-19 to the hospital district. To discharge this, we discussed with management specifically around processes and controls as organizations move to more remote forms of working. We also considered whether there were any material impacts on any of the key funders of the hospital district to see if there would be a potential either adjustment to the financial statements or required disclosure to the financial statements. There is some note disclosure in the financial statements. It's quite general in nature. It really highlights the general uncertainty arising from COVID-19, and that given the dynamic circumstances around the pandemic, the financial impact over time and into the future isn't determinable at this time. The other areas of consideration include recognition of grant and government transfer revenue. And that's just because under public sector accounting standards, this is quite a complex area of accounting. So, we review where there are grants, we review underlying agreements. However, there wasn't a material amount of grant revenue in the year. As far as tax requisitions go, we review against budget and the approved tax requisitions from each member municipality and electoral areas. The last area of consideration is the potential for management override of internal controls. And this acknowledges that management, by virtue of their position, could either directly or indirectly manipulate accounting records by virtue of their position. That doesn't mean that we believe that management would do this. We just have to consider the possibility that they could. And so we do this by examining unusual and non-recurring journal entries that are recorded around key reporting dates, and that's specifically because that's sort of the timing. If there was to be manipulation, it would be sort of closer towards year end when results are becoming clearer to management. We also look at transactions that occur outside of the normal internal control processes to understand the underlying business rationale of those transactions. Again, in all these areas, we conducted our audit procedures without issues, and we've got nothing to raise to your attention today. Oh, one last area, yes. This arose out of really a review of different accounting practices throughout local governments across BC. We identified that there was an inconsistent practice in many local governments as to how debt reserve funds were being accounted for by local governments. Previous common practice was to expense debt reserve funds up front and then record them as revenues on the back end as debts matured. In review of these instruments, it was our view that there was sufficient underlying basis to consider this an asset. We have yet to identify a local government that has not collected the debt reserve funds. And in fact, over time, they do earn interest for local governments. As a result, and to bring it in line with the practices of other local governments, we proposed an adjustment to record the debt reserve fund on the statement of financial position, which management agreed with. This resulted as an increase to the assets of the hospital district of $219,000 as at the year ended December 31, 2020. Internal control matters. There are no internal control matters which we believe need to be raised to your attention at this time. And there are no other required communications which we believe need to be raised to your attention. Appendix. The appendix to this letter provides a copy of our letter of representation, which outlines that management has provided us with unrestricted access to personnel records and systems to accumulate the audit evidence required to provide our audit opinion. Management will sign this on conclusion of the audit. It's a required step in advance of finalizing our audit opinion. And last but not least is a copy of our independent auditor's report, which outlines our opinion. We are proposing an unmodified or clean audit opinion, where it reads that in our opinion, the financial statements presents fairly in all material respects the financial position of the district at December 31, 2020, and the results of its operations, changes in net debt and cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. Do want to draw attention to the emphasis of matter paragraph, which does mention the restatement that I outlined earlier with regards to the debt reserve fund. And that takes us to the conclusion of our presentation of the audit results. We'll stop sharing now and take any questions if there are any.
Directors, any questions to this point? All right, I don't see any hands up. Continue on, Paul.
All right, wonderful. So this is always the part I'm always a little bit fuzzy on. Would you like me to present the financial statements, or Tina, would you like to present those?
I can go ahead and present those, but essentially there's not a lot to report on specifically for the financials. I think, Paul, you've already highlighted the restatement. And essentially for the regional district, there wasn't a lot of activity in the sense of mostly just operational debt repayments and payments towards our contribution to Vancouver Coastal Health for various capital project commitments that we have. So other than that, there's nothing really much more to report.
All right. I'm going to go back to directors for questions, and then we'll go back and we'll actually receive all the materials and pass all the motions and things that we need to do. No questions. All right. I would look for a motion first to receive all the reports. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And then if we move to page 29, there are a few, well, there's one long motion there, one recommendation, that the report titled Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District Draft Audited Financial Statements year ended December 31st, 2020, and the following documents be received. Audit final report to the Board of Directors for year ended December 31st, 2020, draft independent auditor's report, draft audited financial statements, and that the SCR HD draft audited financial statements for year ended December 31st, 2020 be approved as presented. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Is there anything further from BDO or Tina?
Not from us, thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to apprise the board of a meeting that Director Beamish and I had probably a few weeks ago with the Regional Hospital, the Sunshine Coast Seashell Hospital Foundation. That's what they're called. They've changed their name a bit over the last while. Seashell Hospital Foundation. We had that conversation because we're all looking at mental health and substance use treatment on the Sunshine Coast. Further to that, we would like to gather the various parties, including First Nations Health Authority, to have a conversation about just where we are in that process. So I wanted to apprise the board. When we set up, it'll be an informal meeting of all the parties when we get them, but all board members will be invited. You're welcome to attend. So that will be upcoming in the next while. I think it's going to take us a bit to look at everybody's schedule to find a time that'll work. We would, request that Johan be there and Marie as well as the Seashell Nation and First Nations Health Authority and Vancouver Coastal Health. So it'll be all of the parties, and it's just basically a touch base to see where are we and what are the steps forward that we can take together. All right, Director Beamish.
Yeah, just to add to that, yesterday at the Mayor's Forum, there was extensive discussion with the RCMP and other communities, mayors of the Lower Mainland. One of the primary concerns, of course, is mental health and addiction issues and the role of policing in that. And it might not be a bad idea if we could include the RCMP, even from E Division. They are preparing a report to the special committee on the Police Act review relative specifically to that. There was no conclusion yesterday. It was suggested that when that report is drafted, that the mayor's forum group would have a look at it and see if they were prepared to endorse it as a report from the mayor's forum, which would include Mayor Seegers and myself. So I think it'd be good to have them in that conversation from a broad perspective, because everybody has issues and concerns, and the role of policing is one that's foremost in many communities' minds.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Marie. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. The timing for our discussion on mental health and substance use is very good. I'm not sure if anyone or all of you are aware, but very recently, within the last couple of weeks, Vancouver Coastal has done a little bit of a reorg as far as their mental health and substance use operations responsibility on for their rural sites. And locally, the mental health and substance use portfolio has come back from a regional perspective to so that will sit with myself now and with Marius as well. So very excited about that. And so I think that the timing for our discussion is great.
Perfect. One of the reasons that we'd like the Sechelt Nation there is they have actually made a application to First Nations Health Authority for funding.
Mm-hmm.
And that hasn't proceeded through yet because the manager of that department is the position's being filled at this point. So it's sitting there, but we're all looking at what the bigger conversation is. So it'd be great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.